Hello, 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 hello. Welcome back to Barba Queer episode full blown sex party. That's how many episodes we're getting to, guys.
I love how you equate every episode number to some kind of sex thing. First, one second it was an orgy,
Yeah,
then it was like group play,
yeah.
and now it's like a full blown sex party.
Full blown sex party in a mansion, in a nice mansion.
So when are we gonna go cruising with like a group?
Oh, don't you worry. It's going to happen.
I'm waiting. That's the only reason why I'm here.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much. So this week we wanted to talk about something that that is very close to my heart, and I think very close to everybody here's heart, is mental health, especially mental health in the queer community. But before we start talking about this pretty lofty topic, we wanted to start with dad jokes.
Yeah, something fun.
Something fun, something quirky. We're just quirky.
Are you a dad out there? Do you know any jokes? Well, we got some for you.
Yes, we do. Oh, so this is Jay Northcott. Here's my joke. Are you ready for it?
Oh, we're ready.
What do you call a wave at a small beach?
I don't know.
A microwave.
Yes.
Hey, I have one more. Who rules a pencil kit?
I don't know.
The ruler.
Oh my god.
All right. Well,
Why do we go with dad jokes?
I love dad
Anyway,
jokes.
mine's garbage. So let
I'm
me go
ready.
next. So what do you call the drummer who has twin daughters?
What?
And a 1 and a 2.
very good. Very good. That one
No
was-
motherfuckers laugh louder.
That one was cute. It was cute.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready for mine?
Yes.
All right. Get ready because it's a good one.
Okay.
Why did the crab never share?
Why?
Because he's shellfish.
I love dad jokes so much.
That's it.
How do mountains see?
How?
They peak.
Oh my god. I think my brain just can't wrap around these dad jokes.
I think they're funny.
I have one.
Oh, you have one
I have
more?
one.
I'm mad
Okay.
that you guys have multiples.
Well, I looked them up before. What do you call a cow with 2 legs?
What?
Lean beef. If the cow has no legs, then it's ground beef.
You guys are fucked.
I love these jokes. They're so funny. Okay. So we want to talk about queer mental health today, and the first thing that we want to do is put this disclaimer out there that this is our knowledge and some of the stuff that we have found on the internet and things like that, and the conversations that we've had. That the three of us are not professionals. We're just 3 queers with opinions and some life experience, and those are the things that we're talking about. So by no means are we your therapist. No means do we have all of the knowledge or are doctors or have any real schooling about any of this. We just wanted to have a conversation because it's affected all of us in different ways. So I just wanted to jump in really quick to what is mental health? So we as queer people face a higher risk for some mental health issues due to the effects of discrimination and social discrimination of health. So this just kind of means that the things that we go through as queer people, the trauma and these other kind of things affect our health. And actually one of my friends does a bunch of work in how queer health, how diabetes actually affects queer men more than any other graph of people, because of trauma, being bullied, which I was like, and he has so much research about it. It's crazy.
That's so
Well,
interesting.
On that note, so the Canadian Mental Health Association, CAMH, released an article saying that LGBTQ people face higher rates of depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive and phobic disorders, suicidality, is that a word?
Yeah.
Self-harm and substance use among LGBTQ plus people. Also double the risk for post-traumatic stress disorder, and LGBT youth approximately 14 times the risk of suicide and substance abuse than heterosexual individuals. 77% of trans individuals in Ontario considered suicide, and 45% attempted suicide.
Right. And I think the one thing that I always say about stats like that is that numbers are scary sometimes. And these numbers are also taken from usually like from not every single walk of life of like trans people and queer people, but they're a very good way of seeing just like a number.
So, but let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So now, when you say they're not taken from every walk of life, what does that mean to you? Because when I hear that,
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that we're on the same page.
Yeah.
If we're not, then I wanna shed my page, because I feel like when you say that, yes, it has a deep meaning.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make sure that we're on the same page. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, that that it's proven that more people that like white people who are less marginalized actually bring in more data into these studies.
Mm-hmm.
And then for studies that are trying to prove things like HIV or those kind of things, a lot of them come like that we talked about in the ballroom episode, is that it comes from these stats that we've created
Mm-hmm.
are a way of proving a point. So sometimes if we're reading this thing about Ontario, they really want something to pass. They're saying like, hey, look at how many of these people of color have HIV, but we're not showing you the part of the stat that shows how many white people we tested as well. The same thing.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. And let's say, for example, they did test the entire population, right? For me, what speaks the most volume is that you can tell everyone, hey, we're testing every single race. We're testing every single sexuality out here. But how many individuals do we know that are not willing to get tested for things? So it's like, if this says 45, I wonder what the actual number is, because I'm like, there are 1,000, thousands of people that are just willing or not willing to go get tested and be a part of a stat. So I believe that these stats are probably 10 times higher than they actually are.
Yeah.
But keep going.
You can cut that, right? Thank you. So this is another thing that complies from the Rainbow Health Ontario, and the one that you just read is that the Ontario-based study found that half of trans people are living under $15,000 a year, which impacts like if anybody's been poor or eaten mac and cheese or lived off $15,000 in Ontario, it is a slippery slope. Living on like that much, like we all know how much this freaking city costs. And then also to be somebody who is transitioning or trans or queer. These are things that make those things super expensive, like those surgeries or those kind of things, or things that aren't covered, some medication. So that's another fact.
Can I add one?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if people knew what the DSM was.
Right.
But the DSM was a diagnostic and statistical manual of mental health disorders. According to what I'm reading right now, is that homophobia and transphobia was included in this manual up until 1952.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until 1986 when they started to basically refute this idea of it being included in there. And in the release of the 2013 issue is when the term gender dysmorphia replaced the terms of things like disorder and mental health issue, things like that. So up until 2013, being homophobic, being homosexual, being transsexual, all these things were considered a mental disorder. Yeah,
it's crazy. And like, and even there are people that were like, because it was criminal at certain points too. Like, you know, you went to jail for doing these things. Mm-hmm. So then you have this added like almost like ancestral trauma or worry of these stories that you hear all the time that give you that anxiety, right? When you hear about your community being repressed, it does give you some sort of repression as well.
Of course. I mean, when you're being told that something is wrong from a very young age, and then it goes back to like however many years, that kind of tends to stick with you, and then obviously affects you in your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Did we also talk about how the more marginalized you are, the higher risk you have to deal with mental health?
No.
No. And then some margins include obviously sexual orientation, racialization, gender, disability, income. These, of course, obviously play a key role in mental health and well-being for all of us, and are particularly important for marginalized populations.
Yeah. I think that the one thing that the reason I think that these stats are sometimes really important is because sometimes I forget about them, like hearing like that thing, like being like that, like from what they've studied, that it's like 14 times as high for a queer person to kill themselves than a straight person is like blows my mind. And like I found this one stat that even though it's a stat really really like hits close to home, it's like that LGBTQ youth are 14 times more at risk of suicidal attempts than heterosexual peers. I think you said that earlier, but it just like literally, I don't understand how this isn't something that we talk about more.
So yes, I'm saddened by the stat, but I understand why we don't talk about it more, because nobody wants to talk about these traumatic situations.
Right.
Yes, we should talk about these traumatic situations because they oftentimes help, or talking helps. But what I wanted to ask from you guys is, have you ever known someone that has dealt with a mental health issue, or have you dealt with a mental health issue on your own? And if you have, what did you do, or what advice can you give to someone that is currently struggling with a similar issue as yours?
I mean, I think we have all dealt with some sort of mental health related issue at some point or another. I myself, I think in my recent couple years have just come to terms with the fact that, yeah, sometimes like I'm depressed. Mm-hmm. So yeah, depression is, I would think, more of a widespread thing. Like I think also within the social media and meme world, like it's hilarious and funny to be like, oh my God, we're all depressed, whatever. And like to some point, yeah, it's great that we poke fun of it just to kind of like make it easier to swallow. But at the same time, I think that it is something that we have to almost not take as just like a joke.
Yeah.
Because even like in maybe, let's say in like the last couple of weeks, I've had maybe like 2 or 3 conversations with a couple of my friends that have now like gone on antidepressants because like they've found it that it's just something that they need to do. And I've gone on antidepressants before, and they usually will come to me and kind of ask for my opinion or like my knowledge or whatever. And yeah, I think it's something that now we all kind of are slightly more open to talking about. But at the same time, it is kind of tricky because what is the right way to go about it?
What was your way?
I did a lot of research. So for me, I think it started, this is like a couple years ago, where I just felt like really low energy, and it just went on for like a little bit, like 6 months. And I'm like, you know what? This is probably not normal. And yeah, like I would function and I would do things that I needed to. But like as soon as I hit home, I would just lay in bed. Are
you currently still on the medication?
No.
How did you convert to not?
For me, after I did my like extensive research of like what I could do to kind of like combat like me feeling like down or low, I decided to go on antidepressants. And obviously like a number of things in my life were kind of like kind of being a factor as well, obviously, to kind of like offset the depression. And what I found was that drugs are not the answer.
Right.
But they weren't the answer for me, but they could be the answer for somebody else.
Right.
My body didn't really take to any of the medication that I tried, and it just made me feel worse. So for me, after trying like a couple different kinds, I just kind of didn't want to do like the mixing of the cocktail. And I just was like, you know what, like I'm good. And then after that, I just kind of like found things to kind of keep my mind occupied. So like working out, for example, or meditating. So I've been meditating for like years, and it is like, I know it sounds really like whatever. And like, I don't know, whoever talks about like mental health or depression, like they'll tell you like work out, eat right, meditate. And like, as if like, you know, that's what's going to cure everything. Right. And like, here I'm sitting being like, meditate. And like, that's true. But like, you really have to just kind of find what works for you.
Yeah.
For me, like that really helped just to kind of be in like my own head and my own space and just to find quiet. And then once I was able to do that, it's kind of like when the pieces in my life started to like fall into place. Because I kind of like to equate it as like before, when I was depressed, it's like all of these pieces were just flying around. And I think that's what was making me like anxious and like, because I didn't know what to do with all these pieces. Right. So in my mind, there's like this chaotic cloud, if you will. And then I think once I kind of was able to like zone in and just like be at peace with myself, I was able to kind of take these pieces and fit them into where they were supposed to be.
Right. Yeah. And I found a very similar thing when I was younger. I was asked if I wanted to be on antidepressants when I was like 10 or 11, because I was like,
that's young.
Yeah. Well, I was a very angry kid. Like I had a lot of issues growing up, and like my family deals with a lot of mental health issues. And I was like, no, this is not for me. I started taking them for maybe like 6 weeks or something like that. And then it wasn't great for me. So then when I went to university, I was diagnosed with like severe depression and anxiety and like a little bit of a personality disorder kind of stuff. So and ADD, which is the one that like, really fucked me up in school, because like ADD causes all the anxiety, causes all the depression, because I was too afraid to ask for help. Because like when I was 22, I was diagnosed with like dyslexia. So like I've been reading and trying to figure everything out for 22 years and not understanding why I was such a slow reader and why I sucked at everything. I really wanted to be smart all the time. So then in school, when you can't be successful at the pace of university is so freaking fast. I was like, oh, I need to figure this out. So I started taking an ADD med during school. It was, one thing is about ADD meds is they're amazing, but they also will make you very anxious. So like I'm able to get all this work done, but I'm just having constant panic attacks. So then I got put on different medication, and then I stopped taking both of them after university, because I was like, do you know what? I don't need it. I don't need to be like, I could work for 18 hours on this ADD medication. And you're like, I don't know for me if that is safe, because I'm such a workhorse that I use the medication for an excuse to continue to work. And then now recently my mental health has not been super great. And that probably has a lot to do with the world is on fire. And we're all trying to figure it out, but I'm back on antidepressants and ADD medication on a little bit lower of a dosage, which is nice. But for me, like my depression has always been there since I was a kid. And I didn't really know what it was, because nobody would put in like a label on it. Like my mom was like, that's not a thing. People are sad sometimes, but you'll just get over it. Like I talk to a therapist every week and that's what saves my life. In certain ways, it's like that I have somebody to talk to that is like kind of like a third party. It's like your friends and like your community can be amazing, but they also are sometimes not the problem, but they sure don't fucking help with the solution, right? So like if you need somebody that can see from outside of what you see every day, and that's what's really been helping me.
Amen. I don't think there's many people that can truly help with the situation in terms of visualizing and giving you guidance, because no one truly understands what's inside of your head. And unless you are being 100% transparent with them, like you would be to like a psychologist, things like that, then they really can't speak on your behalf. Do you know what I mean? Like how many of us can say we are 1,000% transparent with our parents? Do you know what I mean? Like it's the likelihood of that is just not common.
Right.
in terms of myself, and this is something that even my mother doesn't know, and come to a couple of days ago, this lady decided to tell me that she was creeping this podcast. So, mother, I am on antidepressants. I have been for a year, and I am on anti-anxiety meds, which I have been for 2 years. My spiraling moment was in 2015 when I was hit by a car. When I was hit by a car, my anxiety went through the roof. So I couldn't be in a car. I couldn't drive a car. I couldn't do anything without losing my shit. So then I stopped being in cars. I was on the bus. I didn't care. So that was a solving thing for me. But it wasn't. It was a temporary fix. And then my life started to spiral out of control, because in 2015 I was in like the best shape I was ever been. At that point, it was like my life was at the best it was ever been. I was in a relationship, all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, everything started to get ticked off the list one by one, from my relationship to my dog, to my home, to my fitness, to everything, to the point where that was like the starting point to me becoming antisocial. It was like, you know what? How embarrassing is it to go from a fat kid to a fucking fit fucker to a fat kid? So now I started to seclude myself. At that point, I started to spiral into depression. And it wasn't until last year that I really realized that I was depressed. Because I was what I like to call a functioning depressed individual. So I can still go to work. I can still all that kind of stuff. But then the moment I come home, it's like none of it exists. I don't want to do anything. Leave me alone. Blah, blah, all that kind of shit. So then I started to see a psychologist, and he was telling me that it's a thing. Like you can be depressed and still function. So at that point, we started to go through all these meds and started to figure out what meds work for me. Some made me like fucking impotent. I couldn't fuck. I could jack off for like 4 hours and not come. Some would like that, but for me it was traumatizing. But then yeah, so then I found it. I found the drug that worked for me. I don't take it every day right now. Unfortunately, once you're accustomed to it, if your body starts to long for this medication, you start to get headaches. So I take it when I get the headache. And then I have this other med that kind of just boosts my fucking my what do you call that?
Serotonin?
I don't know. Basically just boosts my fucking
your serotonin. Yeah.
My hypeness. Basically just boosts the greatness that already exists.
Love that. In
my body. So then I'll take that every once in a while when I'm going to a club, when I'm going to fuck, all that kind of shit. Then yeah. Other than that, yeah, I feel like mental health, especially in the queer community, is real. Now, I already have my reasonings for why I think it's real. Why do you think that queer individuals are so susceptible to mental health issues?
I think there's 2 points. As we kind of heard in some of the facts, is that like, yeah, there is things that make us more susceptible to it, but it also, I think in this day and age now, there's still straight men out there that are really too afraid to talk about their feelings. And I see a lot, because like I grew up in a very straight town. I still have those friends and those people in my community that aren't able to express the like depression the way that we can. Like I think sometimes we see depression as like needing help, but sometimes it's like the lack of even knowing that you need it. And I think that maybe because of coming out and because of some of the stuff that's happened to queer people when we were younger, we are a little bit more connected to those emotional things that do cause depression and anxiety. I'm not a doctor, but that's how I feel. Some people can coast on it, but like I was going to say, like you were saying, like you were functional, like that you can still function during that, like during depression. And because mine come in such highs and lows, like I will spend 3 days in bed and not eat or use the washroom or leave my bed, and I'll just sleep. And like the only thing that gets me up maybe is like to feed my cat. Like that's the reason I got an animal, is because then it's like it's something that I have to take care of. And that's why, like, when those emotions come back,
amen.
yeah, like when those things start coming back, like that's the moment I'm like, okay, medication needs to change, this thing needs to change, I need to have more conversations. What am I missing? What do I need to do? So I think it's another thing is like mental health is not something you solve, right? It's not a problem that you can just solve. It's something that, like, you continue to live with for your whole life, but you just have to find ways to cope and understand it more.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of people, especially a lot of my friends that I've been talking to in the past couple of weeks, I think they kind of have that perception that, like, if you take a pill, it's just going to fix it and it'll go away.
Right.
And I think maybe at some point that's kind of what I thought as well before I did my research. And I found that the medication for me just isn't it. And it's not going to do its thing. For some people, like, talking to a therapist is the best kind of medication that they could do. For me, like, I talked to a therapist as well, and I also found that also wasn't for me. So in a strange way, it was kind of just like a trial and error. Like, that's absolutely what it is. Like, any sort of mental health journey, it sucks, but it's like it is a lot of trial and error. You have to do things, and if you find that it doesn't work for you, then you need to go on to the next and see what does, and then do more of it.
Yeah. And I think even having, like, for me, the one thing that really helped me is I started giving my roommate a checklist. Like, I would give her a list of things that I would say that I would do for my mental health stuff, like somebody that I really trusted, and be like, okay, I'm going to see this therapist and I'm going to have this conversation with him. And like, she would, like, once in a while just check on me and be like, hey, did you call that guy? Like, are you going to go to therapy with him? I'm like, no, I haven't. She's like, okay, then you should. She wouldn't be like, do it right now. But she was like, you have those people in your life that really do want to be there for you. And I think even, like, those people have had conversations with me now, being like, feeling comfortable to be like, oh, I was feeling this way about this certain thing. Like, can you talk to me about it? So I think, like, being so, like, this Bell Let's Talk, like, Bell Let's Talk is, like, still a corporation, still a thing, like, that's trying to make money, but it does really bring this good message that I think people have always been saying in the past, like, maybe 10 years, is that we need to talk about it, because it's like addiction in certain ways. Like, addiction only turns into addiction when you start hiding it. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously there's other parts of addiction, but, like, hiding it and having to lie is the moment where it starts getting worse.
When I think you were going through your mental health journey, did you, like, in the beginning, if you can remember, did you, like, seek help? Did you ask your friends? Did you, like, what did you do? Yeah,
I think it was a little bit of both. Like, when I was younger, so my grandmother, on my mom's side, she had really bad postpartum depression, and she killed herself kind of by overdosing on medication. But then when they did the autopsy on her, there wasn't enough pills in her system for her to die. And then she, like, everybody was really confused. And in my head, it was like, this woman, like, I got to read, like, she has these journals that she kept, and, like, this woman did not want to be alive anymore. And, like, just the will of not wanting to be alive was something that I saw in these books, that I was like, oh, like, this runs in my family. And, like, this is what I was feeling a lot of the time. So that was the moment that, like, this woman, like, really helped me, even though I've never met her, because she died when my mom was 8. And it was just like, that was the moment that I knew that I was like, oh, that's what I'm feeling, and I need to talk to somebody. And I didn't feel like a lot of support from home in the way of, like, wanting to use like medical professionals or medication, because my family really doesn't believe in that, which is their own mental health journey. And so when I went to university, it was like the first thing that I did. It was like, university 7 hours away from where I lived. And I, like, went to the walk-in and was like, hi, I need to talk to somebody. I was like, there's something fucking wrong. So I had this woman that was super helpful, because I had all these, like, weird nervous tics that I was like, anyway, it doesn't really matter what they are. And she helped me work on those. And then she showed me certain new medications that we tried a bunch of new stuff. And that's kind of where it started. And that's when I just knew that, like, there was just a point that I was like, oh, I was so afraid to, I think for a long time, I was like, I'm broken, I'm garbed, like, blah, 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 blah. But that, like, we're all just, like, trying to fucking figure it out. And some of us just figure it out in different ways. and my brain just moves so fast all the time. Like it's always just like, and that's the reason I use that's the reason I had a substance and alcohol abuse issue for a really long time, and still deal with it once in a while. Being like, oh, am I drinking too much? Am I doing this too much? So it's always a journey, and it's always like just every single time I think I'm renegotiating with myself.
Wow. Let's take a break. And then I'll comment.
Jay-Ho, have you heard about BetterHelp.com?
BetterHelp. Is that online therapy?
Yes, it is. But not only is it therapy, it's therapy with a professional counselor that specializes in whatever you need.
Whatever.
Yeah, and wherever you are worldwide.
Okay, so how does it work?
Okay, so you log on to BetterHelp.com. So that's HELP.com. And if you put /barbequeer, you get 10% off.
Amazing, because I have no money and I need to save $1.
And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it convenient, professional, and affordable.
Okay, but then I'm not really sure about the therapy thing. So if I'm talking to these people and I'm just not vibing with them, what happens?
They'll set you up with a new one, girl. For free.
For free.
For free. And that's the thing I love about this. BetterHelp has helped me out through so many things in the past couple of months, and I think everybody should try it.
So texting, video, and phone conversation.
Yeah, and all you have to do is go to betterhelp.com/barbequeer to get 10% off your first month.
You know what? I'm going to try this right away.
I love that because over 1 million people are doing it. So why not make it 1 million and one?
Yes.
I love it. Take care of yourself today so you can be a better you tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
We just love them so much. We want them to take care of themselves.
Good for you. Good for you, because you are taking the opportunity to renegotiate with yourself. And I feel like once you understand that you are renegotiating it with yourself, then you are in an okay place.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's when you start to renegotiate with yourself, but not realize that you're renegotiating with yourself. So now you end up in a less off place than you were to begin with.
Right.
That's when it's a problem. Now, why I think individuals of our community are more susceptible of it is I feel like we are bred into this culture that off the bat, we are forced with struggles. Off the bat, we are forced with criticism. Off the bat, we are forced with alienation. And the list goes on. So now from the moment that we understand ourselves, we are now forced to trying to get others to accept us or trying to get others to simply just appreciate us. And if you are of the strongest, then you are simply just battling the opinions of others, which also is hard as it is as trying to get someone else to see the world from your point of view.
For sure.
So I feel like because of that, and that never stops as you get older. So I feel like that constant turmoil, that constant need for acceptance, that constant looking for your family to just appreciate who you are, it's making you susceptible to the havoc of life. And a part of the havoc of life is depression. Now, when you add in things like work, you add in things like relationships, you add in all those life norms, we as LGBTQ plus individuals are way more susceptible of it because we've been dealing with it from the moment that we identified who we were as an individual.
Right.
Whereas some kids are fortunate enough to not have to deal with this until they're applying for their first job. Do you know what I mean? We went to fucking elementary school, middle school, all that jazz, and that's what we knew. Do you know what I mean? We knew that we weren't attracted to females, and we had to somehow pretend like we were, or just not gauge that or attain that attraction, right? So immediately off the bat, we are forced to hide. We are forced to hide among the masses. And that's my opinion. But anyway, I want to say this. So that according to her hope, anyway, I'm gonna assume this is hetero help. It says research shows that LGBTQ plus people have higher rates of mental health challenges than the general population. LGBTQ plus people often struggle with depression, anxiety, trauma, and self-acceptance as a result of facing ongoing discrimination over their lifetimes. LGBTQ plus youth are about 3 to 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their peers.
Right. And I think that like some of that comes to like that's today, right? And I feel like when we were younger, it was even scarier in certain ways. That like I remember like being in the 90s and like that my older cousins didn't know any queer people at all because people didn't come out in high school. So you're dealing kind of with that all in high school where you're like hiding so much more. Right. Like I'm young and I didn't have to experience being very, very, very scared to come out in high school, like scared enough, but I was also a bad bitch. So I was less scared, but it was like, I couldn't imagine coming out in the 90s or like even having like mental health or depression or any of those kind of things, like in the early 90s where we didn't really talk about it as much as we do now.
Yeah. Let me say this. So now there's a continuation. I only read half of it. So if I stumble, I'm not illiterate. I am simply just stumbling. Okay. Anyway. And I have my second glass of wine, third,
yeah, I think so.
fourth, sixth. Okay. Anyway. So okay. First stumble. So the reason why I stumbled is because it's not saying LGBTQ plus people. It's just saying LGBT. And I'm trying to be like inclusive.
Yeah.
So LGBTQ plus people unquestionably experience long-term stress related to their sexual orientation or gender identity, improper use of sentence structure, but they often internalize the negative messages about being different. These messages become beliefs that can foster and develop into struggles, shame about who they are and what they feel, and guilt about what they do. Moreover, LGBTQ plus people witness physical assaults against others they identify with, which further threatens their sense of physical and emotional safety. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, duh. Like,
yeah,
some of these things, I honestly like when, like, I know we're reading them and like we're talking about them, but some of them was just like, yeah, of course, fucking obviously, like we're being told from like childhood that we don't belong, that
right.
what we are is not right, that we need to be changed, or like we can't even be our true self. So of course there's trauma there. Of course, like we're more likely to attempt or commit suicide. Like imagine, like I don't think people get it. It's almost like
then wait. So then why is it duh?
Because
it's duh to those that get it.
No,
it's not duh if they don't get it.
How I like to always, even in my day-to-day conversations, I like to kind of like equate things to things that other people will understand. So this is what I equate this to. Imagine we're all in a race. And
like drag race?
No, just a regular race.
Like drag you?
No, just a race.
Like all stars.
Just a race. And queer people now in this race have their legs chopped off.
Right.
Okay. We're all still expected to race with everybody else, but we have this handicap
right
now because we're being told for the rest, or like for all of our lives, that we don't belong. So of course we're going to be struggling through this race of life, and not all of us are going to make it.
Right.
So that's why. That's it.
So wait. So clarify. So in that race situation, where's the duh? Are you saying that they should have realized that because your legs were chopped off, you weren't going to perform just like them?
No, but a lot of the statistics and the stuff that we read is like, I almost find that some people find it shocking, or like, you know, oh, like, what? Like, I didn't know that it was like that, or
right.
Oh my God, or, you know, all those countless stories that like we hear in the news of like, I know, obviously young people committing suicide. And like the thing that really irks me is when somebody says like, oh, well, how could they do that? Or
Right.
how can that happen? Or why does this happen? It's like, well, look around you. Like, we live in like a fucked up world where that child that killed himself was being told for like his very short life that he didn't belong. So of course, like, he's not going to want to belong in a world that keeps telling him he shouldn't be in.
I want to convert your analogy in a little bit to one of my own. So like how you see it as like these horses with their legs chopped off, I see it as the complete opposite. So we're not horses with our legs chopped off. We are unicorns. So out of a horse race, we are the only ones that have, is it called the unicorn?
Yeah.
The antler in front of their
unicorn?
face. That shit in front of their head.
Yeah,
we're the only ones that have that shit in front of their head. And now people always ask us, so how do you feel discriminated against? Because you're the special one. You have these things on your head. But it's like, yeah, we may be special according to popular belief, according to what the general media and the general public likes to portray us as.
Right.
We are a tool of commercialization and popularization, if that makes sense. But in reality, no one accepts us. We are shunned from every single thing upon society, or we are used as a means of entertainment. So what I say by that is, like, for example, I grew up on the football team, right? God forbid I was sitting there from the moment I entered the football team as a gay man. There's no way in hell I'd be able to use the same change room. Do you know what I mean? Fast forward 2020, my current job today. Why is there a trans man at my workplace who has his own washroom to change?
Right.
Why? Explain to me. He's a man. We're not getting butt ass naked. Why can't he change with the rest of us?
Do you know, is it his choice or their choice?
It's a trans washroom. So the moment that he came out as trans, they assigned him this washroom.
That's weird. See, and like those are just like little biases that go along. But did you guys watch Disclosure? Did either of you watch this thing on Netflix? Mm-hmm. So Disclosure is this documentary about. It's this documentary about. Sorry, what did you say?
I'll just.
I can't. Yeah. Anyway.
I was just mumbling and I was just jacking off and I was just touching myself.
Can we cut this part too?
No, I was touching myself and they deserve to understand that I was fucking touching myself.
Please.
Then you got to say the whole thing all over again.
Just the disclosure part. I just started.
Start from. Did any of you guys watch it yet?
Yeah. Have any of you guys watched Disclosure?
No.
Okay, so it's this newer documentary on Netflix. It's all about trans women in that are activists that work in actually trans men and trans women that work in activism, work as artists in the community. A lot of people from Pose, the woman, I'm so bad with names, the woman from Orange is the New Black,
Laverne Cox.
Thank you. I just don't know why I'm so bad with names. Like, I just wish it's because I smoked too much weed when I was a kid.
Did you say Deborah Cox, bitch?
No, Laverne Cox.
Oh. I was like, what episode did I miss?
So it's just like this. It's a very beautiful conversation talking about like the one moment that really struck me in a weird way is them talking about Ace Ventura, the private detective, like pet detective that Jim Carrey. And in one of the I don't remember if it's the first one or the second one, the bad guy in it is a trans woman that is pre-operation, and the butt of the joke at the end is that like he was making out with her, blah, 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 and that he was making out with a man. So then Jim Carrey starts to vomit and every other person around them starts to vomit, that it was like so disgusting that he made out with a woman that has a penis. And it was like, and when I was a kid, I was like, that's so funny. But could you imagine being trans and like, that's one of the first depictions you see of like a trans person, and it's like everybody when they try to become who they actually are, everybody looks at them and vomits. And I was like,
that's mortifying. That like, I'm not surprised because obviously things back then were so not politically correct.
Right.
But like, that's crazy.
And it's not the first time it happened either. And that was the
Yeah.
thing that was like, I was like, I wouldn't even think that, like we saw what gay men kind of look like when we were growing up, and they were like pretty faggy and blah, 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 but they weren't usually ever a villain, they weren't a villain for being gay, but like these people are villains for being trans. And we wonder why trans people have higher suicide rates or these kind of things. It's like we've actually put them in situations where they were the villain in TV shows and movies just for being trans.
And I find that that's why people shy away from coming out, whether or not their family may be accepting and things like that, because there's so many taboos that are related to it. And the one thing I want to touch upon is allies, because I find that a lot of people are saying they are allies when they're not truly allies. They can simply just be supporters or people who are entertained by this community of ours. Like for me, it means so much to be an ally. Like if you are going to fight for our rights, if you are going to sit here, if you had a gay brother or a lesbian brother or a trans brother or a queer brother, you should be fighting just as hard as them. Don't be that one person that's like, you know what, I'm going to hold up a rainbow flag during Pride and call myself an ally. Yes, I appreciate it. But in my mind, there's more to what being an ally is. So now I want to read to you guys what this website says, heritohelp.bc.ca. That's where you guys are from, no? British Columbia? Alberta?
I'm from Alberta.
That's
from
BC,
Alberta.
no?
No. British
Bitch.
Columbia is its own province.
Well, fuck geography. So anyway, so allies move beyond pity and tolerance to lead by example. To me, that was the strongest point. They understand that LGBTQ plus people have a right to be true to themselves in expressing their gender and sexual orientation and in living full and proud lives as equals in society.
Right.
Allies challenge discriminations against LGBTQ plus people and acknowledge the impact of historical prejudice upon mental health. That to me is an ally. So don't just sit here and hold up your flag and march with us during Pride Week. It's an ongoing thing, just like Black Lives Matter is, just like Black Trans Lives Matter is, just like every other matter is that we fight every day. It's not a week-long thing. It's not a month-long thing. It's not a year-long thing. It's a fucking thing that will last a lifetime. So if you are an ally, the fight should not quit.
Right.
Cool.
Moving forward, so my family has also dealt with a lot of alcoholism and drug use, and I have also participated in alcohol and drug use, and still figure out that balance of like how much of that is me self-medicating or how much is it me just wanting to have fun. So it's always been this balance for me, but I'm guessing recently it kind of clicked to me one day that, like, how everybody always says that like alcoholism is a mental health disorder, and I was like, no, it fucking isn't. And then one day it clicked with me, and I was like, oh, it actually, for me anyway, it is, right? It's like it is something that is inherently in your body to have these like certain types of cravings. Certain people crave things more than other people, and that is like the addiction that comes really easy, and that addiction is mental health.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that stemmed from being a queer individual?
I think that like what we've even talked in some episodes is that like drinking and doing drugs is almost part of our culture, especially when we're younger. And I think it's more in ours than it is anywhere else. Like I think I do have friends obviously that are straight that drink and do drugs, but I feel like it's so pertinent in our community.
Can I give you the number one reason why I think it's the most pertinent in our community?
Why?
Because we are so focused on living up to a standard within our community where it's like the only way to leave your house and feel confident in yourself is to have a couple shots of liquid courage.
Right. And do you want to hear actually something really amazing that I was reading about recently? is that like in Germany, because they have a pretty high, like not just in queer people, but in like all people, they have like a pretty high drug use in young people. So what they've created now, not during COVID, obviously, but in the past like 5 years, they've been doing these like, because they have like huge parties, you know, like these crazy fucking parties in that city and, or in that country. And they are doing all these like little, like for kids, for like, there's like ones for like 5 to 10, like, or like 5 to 8 to whatever, like, and then adolescents and high schoolers that are parties, like raves, like hardcore raves with no drugs and alcohol. Because what it is it's teaching them how to go into those spaces and have a shit ton of fun without the need of drug and alcohol. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that is brilliant. Amazing. Germany. I was like, that is so amazing. Fucking smart. Whoever this company is or these people are that have created this is so smart, because the thing is when I started going to the clubs, when I started doing this stuff, I was just automatically told that that's what you have to do. You have to start taking shots. You have to start drinking. If somebody offers you something in the bathroom, you fucking take it, you know? So as you were telling that story, I kind of started thinking about, like, obviously as queer people, you go to a club, you go for a night out on the town, whatever, and obviously drugs and alcohol are probably going to be involved. Right. But I almost think that why it's so pertinent in like our community is maybe because, like generally from day to day life, like as queer people, like our life kind of sucks, right? If we're going to go on, based on like, just like a general statement of like not being accepted, having to change who you are, having to kind of fit into society, like, yeah, everything kind of sucks. So is it maybe that like a club or a bar or that sort of atmosphere where you can take drugs and alcohol that are used to make you feel more euphoric is the only the only place that you can kind of have fun, because in your day-to-day life, you're being told, no, gay is bad and right. You are not accepted. So yeah, absolutely. And I think that even in my anxiety, like some of my anxiety comes from like, especially during sex, like having sex sober for me is like still quite difficult. And like, you know, like I've had my fair bit of sex, not millions of people, but sure, a fair bit. And like, I still have so much anxiety about like performing very well during sex when I'm sober, because there's not really like, I've been talking to my therapist about it. It's like, is an excuse because because when I'm drunk, I can be like, oh, it's because I was drunk. Right. Or is it, and like, so I'm afraid of that intimacy. I'm running away from that. Or is it just the anxiety of not wanting to have sex sober? And what does that mean? You know, like, what is that? What's behind there? Like, what mental health is behind that? So me and Paul are working on it.
Can I tell you what I think it means?
Yeah.
And I'm only going to tell you what I think it means because I've been there. I've been there, and I had a similar question to my psychologist, and what it was that it's not that you are facing or challenging your anxiety, for lack of a better word. What it is that you are so conflicted with who you are as an individual and where you are supposed to be in life and your social norms and what society sees your social norms to be, where now you're drowning out every single thing that everyone has fed to you as to be what's acceptable and to be what's norm. So now you don't even want to question it. You don't even want to think about it. It's like, you know what? Let me have a drink. Let me have sex, because you know what I'm doing may be wrong.
Right. Yeah. And it also comes a lot from like body dysmorphia as well. Like I think a lot of queer people deal with body dysmorphia, and being non-binary. Like I already am like, what is this body? Like,
which goes back to the norms and what's acceptable.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess where I want to go right now is like, what do we like? I want to end this on a happy story as well. I want to end this on like having conversations about like what's making us feel good right now. Like, what are you doing to take care of your mental health? Do you have any stories of like
before that? Can we just acknowledge or tell those who may be facing something similar to what we have faced, or even if it's not similar, if you think that you are going through something that is a mental health crisis or situation, or if you think you are borderline, or if you think that it may be coming, it's stemming, or if you know somebody that is dealing with the situation, the best help that you can give them is any fucking help. Waiting is not adequate, and waiting for them to speak up is not enough help, nor will it ever come. And if it does come, it's probably going to be too late. So as an ally, as someone who loves themselves, and as someone who is seeking the best for themselves, the moment you feel like you need help, seek it. And if you felt like you need help for a while, it's never too late to seek it. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of a happy ending. I think like I always think of the Oz, not the Wizard of Oz, but Oz with fucking Michael Jackson and Donna Summer.
The Black Oz.
Yeah. So good. And I think of like,
it's called The Wiz.
What do I call it?
Oz.
Fuck. It's called The Wiz. I literally have it in my room.
Yeah.
Why did I call it the Oz?
Because it's called The Wizard of Oz.
I know.
The white one was called The Wizard of Oz.
I know. God, now I seem stupid and illiterate and don't know black things.
Now you
but I
seem
do.
like a white supremacist, bitch.
I know. I'm just saying that when I watched The Wiz, like the very first time I saw that, like
China. Sorry.
So I
see. Wait. Last time you guys told me to do my own sound effects. See what just happened, bitch? I just give you a sound effect.
Yeah.
Because Donald Trump says China.
Yeah, but it wasn't in a good space. I was trying to give a happy ending. Now you just brought Donald Trump into it.
I just made the entire world laugh.
So the thing is with The Wiz is what I love the most about the story is it's like it's a black woman's struggle in understanding herself in a certain way, and that all of these things are like in the same way that The Wizard of Oz is, that it's taken in so many different contexts, that like somewhere over the rainbow it's actually like her going through like a mental health crisis and understanding who she is and blah 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 blah. But seeing a black woman go through it for me was just a bit different and felt like a really like something that I really clung on to. So if you ever need a movie that makes you feel really good, watch The Wiz. That's my literal health tip of the day, is go watch the fucking Wiz.
My, I guess, not health tip, because it's not really health related, but it's just that there are so many resources available to you no matter where you live, especially compared to like 5 years ago. Like there are so many different like hotlines, 24-hour hotlines that you can call, websites that you can visit, that you can like speak directly to a therapist like right from there, or just even if you want to educate yourself on like what exactly it is that you're feeling or going through. A lot of websites have it all laid out there for you.
Yeah, one of the best ones that I found during the research and just through the stuff that I went through when I was younger is like the It Gets Better website has actually so many resources for different things. The trans hotline, they just opened and launched a Spanish section.
Fantastic.
So then you can, so they actually have that, especially because it's a mostly US place. It's like, it's a very awesome thing that they're doing.
Is that US based?
It's US based, but anybody can call it. And the number is 877-565-8860.
You know what? We're going to do something better. What we're going to do is we're going to post a link or even phone numbers.
Yeah, we'll post them on Instagram too.
To everything.
Yeah.
So, for one, BetterHelp.
Yeah.
And everything else we can find, because you know what? We are a community, and we are, I don't want to say a dying community, but a community that needs to support each other, because without support, what else you got, right?
Yeah.
We are here for each other. So we will do our best to provide you guys with as many links as we can, at least the most supportive links.
Because do you know why? Because us queers deserve a happy ending.
Because queers deserve a motherfucking happy ending. J-Ho?
That's right.
On that note, you guys, we're here. We're queer.
Toodles.
Toodles.